Welcome to Customer Service Academy Radio with author and customer experience expert Tony Johnson. Tony will share his vision for successful customer service, leadership, and business excellence, and speak to some of the most impactful leaders in business today. And now, here's Tony Johnson.
Hello, everybody. Customer Service Academy is on the air. I'm Tony Johnson, your customer experience strategist and trainer. Today's episode coming to you courtesy of Ignite Your Service Training and Consulting and 4XI Global Consulting and Solutions. Truly better together. Folks, head on over and check out my latest course, The 6 Canons of Customer Service. You can head on over to igniteyourservice.com/learning to get the investment that you need in your leadership, in your team, and in your customer experience to grow your business today. But folks, as I'm talking to you right now, I will tell you, I just got done watching the gold medal tennis match of the Olympics in Paris, 2024 Olympics going on. I don't know if you've been as enamored with them as I have been, but wow, just watched the gold medal men's match, just watched Novak Djokovic absolutely crush it and really make a great play for the gold medal. Just wonderful tennis. Beat Carlos Alcaraz, who also great, amazing up-and-coming player. Trust me, this guy will win gold probably next time around. So this was a rematch of the Wimbledon tennis match from just a few weeks ago. And in that match, Alcaraz absolutely crushed Djokovic. It was not even a contest, straight set loss. And coming into this one, it was indeed a rematch everyone had been looking for. You could tell Novak Djokovic was on a mission. He played amazing tennis. There was a lot of emotion and stick-to-itiveness. You can tell he had done his homework. He had lost handily just a few weeks ago to this same person. And you could tell he went off, did his homework, did his prep, had everything lined up to come into the Olympics with one goal in mind, to win his first Olympic gold medal. Believe it or not, this guy's the best tennis player probably that ever picked up a racket, and he has never won a gold medal until just now. So seeing how he took the defeat at Wimbledon, worked on it, used it, and then came forward and won at the Olympics today in straight sets was something really to really behold. And I think a lesson to all of us: get knocked down twice, get up 3 times, right? I think is really what we all have to understand out of that. It's how you finish, and this guy learned and came back and won. So congratulations to him. Go watch the replay. It is great tennis. So as I record this, it's just been a few weeks since the CrowdStrike hiccup that put so many businesses back on their heels. It was just a couple of weeks ago. This is the first podcast I've recorded since that has happened. And I will tell you, watching so many businesses, again, back on their heels because of a simple security patch was really something to really behold. And it really puts a sharp focus on how important our technology infrastructure is, and also the importance of those we choose to do business with. So if you think about it, all the airlines, particularly Delta, really had a struggle with it. The hotel chains had struggles with it. Retailers had struggles with it. Financial services had struggles with it. This patch went so badly, and we've all watched what's happened to CrowdStrike as they've come out of this, watching their stock price plummet, and just the fact that I think at this point Delta is getting ready to put some kind of $500 million lawsuit against them. So it was a bad day for everybody. And I will tell you, me personally, I was right out in the middle of it. I was supposed to be speaking at an event in South Carolina. And I was actually sitting at the Orlando International Airport on the Tuesday or Wednesday after that whole thing had happened over the previous weekend. I had thought that we were beyond it, but as we all know, as you look back, you can see Delta was one that really struggled the hardest with that meltdown. And they canceled my flight 25 minutes before takeoff. I'm sitting there needing to be in South Carolina that night, and I have no flight, no prospects, because apparently Atlanta was also a mess where I was connecting through. So I literally ended up having to rent a car, and I drove the 7 hours up to South Carolina so I could do my talk the next day. And then everything was so bad and so goofy, I literally just kept my rental car and drove back. But all that said, there were so many people inconvenienced, and if you don't know, Delta actually sent out about 10 to 12,000 reward points to some of their most loyal customers for those that had flights canceled or significantly delayed, as a way of saying they're sorry. And if you put a penny a point on those, which is right around where airline miles come in, that's a pretty significant investment depending on how many people Delta actually reached out to with those 10,000 points. Because if you think about it, 10,000 points is about $100. So really something to think about, because that was a significant investment in service recovery on their part, really trying to ensure that this whole kerfuffle doesn't impact their overall brand loyalty. And it all comes down to really nothing they did, but selecting a partner that didn't get it right. So if you think about it, we probably all have third-party partners that we depend on. It could be your delivery service if you're an Amazon or an online storefront. It could be a print service that ends up printing your book before it's sent out. It could be any number of different things, but you all probably rely on others to help you with pieces of your business. They're third-party partners. They're vital to how business runs in the world right now. Everyone uses these kind of niche folks. But think about, are they exuding the principles of your brand? Are they doing a great job with that last mile fulfillment? Are they representing your brand well? Because remember, everybody you're in business with, particularly, I always come back to the delivery folks. If you have a product that you send out to folks, that people order and you ship to them, the face of your organization most often is not just that product, not just your call center or contact center or your website, but also the service person, the delivery person who drops off that item, whether it's a FedEx or whether it's Amazon delivery services. Those are the face of your brand. It's, for example, here where I am in Lakeland, Florida, I use Kroger delivery quite a bit. And when I think about who I look at as the face of Kroger, it's really not the website. It's really not the contact center when I have to call in. It's the delivery person that shows up in the beautiful Kroger truck and drops off my bags of groceries. Now, I will tell you, Kroger does a great job of recruiting really friendly people to do that, and they do a wonderful job. But they are the face of that organization as far as I'm concerned. So never forget that as you're selecting your third-party partners. So today, as we kick off onto our main topic for today, I really want to talk about this idea of employee experience. We've been talking a lot about the customer, consumer, and guest experience, but always remember that's fueled by people inside of your organization, that the team members that you recruit and select and hopefully retain to really deliver those exemplary products and services. But today I want to myth bust a little bit. I want to kind of really talk through this stuff in a real way, because there is a lot happening out there, particularly if you're watching any number of these HR gurus on social media, if you're watching some of these folks who are advocating for kind of employee rights and how they should be treated in the workplace. There is a lot of back and forth about how employee engagement works, what the benefits are, and what as leaders we should all be doing. So I want to do a little bit of myth busting and a little bit of real talk today. So when we think about this idea of employee engagement, I want you to really take a step back and understand it's more than just job satisfaction. And it's also gone beyond the fact that folks look to their job as a part of their happiness structure. I mean, they do, it's still important, but particularly in the United States, it used to be if you were happy at your job, probably your life was pretty good. You were feeling pretty good about things. You defined your overall happiness kind of by how you felt about your work performance. And those days are sort of gone. I mean, you want work to be a viable part of your life. You don't want it to be, a drudge every day. But it's not the most important things in people's life. It's not the all-defining characteristic as it used to be. So inside of your workplace, you really have to think about if you are fostering that sense of belonging. Are you really bringing people together? Do they feel welcomed in the workplace? And are you communicating your vision and your values? If you have those, and please, if you don't, reach out. We can work together on this. But your mission, your vision, your values are so very important. And the question becomes, are you taking the time to live those values? Not just talk about them, not just share them in employee orientation, not just give them a pretty little pocket card they're going to stuff in their pocket and never look at again. Are you truly living your mission, vision, and values? Are you talking about them every day, and are you using them to guide your decision making? That's really important. Are they really relevant to your daily work? And are you prioritizing the welfare, mental health, those kind of things of your team? Because there's a lot of stress going on out there. So one thing we are hearing more and more, particularly from our millennial and Gen X folks out there, a lot about the importance of mental health, this idea of quote unquote wellness. And it has to be really focal to the way that you run your organization, really understanding that matters, trying to find and understand what will be most relevant to your teams, and really working to make that a part of your culture and how you do business every single day and how you retain your team. Now, part of that comes from thinking about building this culture of continuous feedback and improvement. The one thing that we all have to take away from, and if you've spent any time on social media or really watching some of these quote-unquote HR gurus out there, it's pretty clear that team members are very jaded around employee surveys. So there's two reasons why. Either they're convinced that anonymous surveys really are anonymous, and that's been something that's been going around for decades, right? Are those employee surveys really trackable back to an actual person? Typically what people say is, oh, that number's just there so we can get back to your work group or your store or your location or whatever, that your office, that kind of thing. But there's also always been that sort of in the back of the mind thinking that I'm pretty sure they know that me, Bob, filled that out and trashed my manager. Like there's always that thought in the back of people's head, are they really as anonymous as people say? But even if they believe that they are, and even if they give that really good feedback, and even if they are open and honest about it, there's also that impression that employers do nothing with feedback. And that's something that you really got to work around, because you don't want folks filling out a survey and just assuming that nothing's going to come of it, because either they're not going to be honest, they're not going to do a good job, they're not going to be thorough, or they're just flat out not going to do it at all. And if you want to get away from that, show action against your surveys. Now, what does that mean? That means being open about what the survey results are, sharing that out either by work group or by your entire company or however you want to do it, but sharing some data back out to show that you've actually looked at it. And then taking the time to say, okay, and this is what we're going to do about it. This is the plan. And then the third step is actually doing the stuff you promised, actually doing the things that were suggested and that you said you were going to do, and then doing them. And then taking the step of letting your team know that they were done. And it was done because of the feedback you received. You have to connect these dots. Otherwise, it just happens. They think this stuff goes out into a vacuum and nothing ever comes of it. You want them to think, gosh, every time I talk to my leader about something happens, right? It may be they come back and say it's not possible, or there's an alternative, or we have to be creative, but at least I know they're paying attention to it. And then there are some alternatives. If you've got a culture where you just can't get people to do the surveys, probably time to dig in on more of these one-on-ones. So that's a really important key part. And again, even if your team's doing surveys, these one-on-one moments are great ways to understand individual team members, to ask them what's going well, what's not going well, what tools or training do you need, what ideas do you have, and then most importantly, how as a leader can I help? And then again, following through on those items. As a part of this overall improvement and culture of feedback is not just about sharing when there's performance improvement needed, although you do need to be honest about that. It's also about taking genuine recognition, taking the moment to genuinely thank people, and prioritizing rewards that employees want. Now, that's the kind of stuff you have to ask about. You can't just assume you know. You can't just assume you know based on demographics that your Gen X's, Y's, Z's, your boomers, they're going to want these particular things. They're probably going to be pretty close, but there's no better way than to just ask. It could be money or bonuses or raises. It could be time off. It could be development opportunities. It could also be personalized, specific feedback right to the person. Thank you very much, Steve, for doing this, and understanding whether they like that recognition in private or in public, and then being very specific and personalizing it right to them. And if you think about that idea of continuous improvement, this is about giving folks opportunities to develop. Whether it's micro-learning, whether it's training sessions, whether it's going off to a conference or seminar, whether it's on-the-job training, whether it's getting to shadow a mentor, whatever that is, giving them opportunities to develop and chances to grow within the organization and understanding what that path is. How do I grow? What do I need to learn? How do I learn it? And how do I take that next step to understand what opportunities are coming open and then make the best possible play for them and grow my career? And that's something that's really important. So focusing on things like transferable skills are really important to folks. So if I learn this skill, maybe it's presentation skills or public speaking, for example, it doesn't matter if Sally stays with you 6 more months or 6 more years, or if Sally goes to another role. For Sally, you've given her a portable skill. She's now a better public speaker. She's now better at communication and better at presentations. You've given her a great skill that no matter where she goes in her career, she can pick that up and take it with her. And that's important to team members. They want to know that you're not just giving them stuff that's going to help the organization, you're giving them stuff that's going to help them just be better, faster, smarter, stronger as an individual as well. And then don't get hung up. This is a big one. This is one that I hear about a lot from folks. Don't get so hung up on folks paying their dues. Now, that said, there is always a process. There's a way we learn. There's a way to gain experience. And of course, you can't get a role till you're ready for it and have the requisite skills. But if someone is doing a great job and they are ready for a role, don't get stuck or mired in the fact that you had to work longer for it. You had to work harder for it, that it didn't come as easy for you, or that somebody told you once you had to pay your dues before you could have that job, even though you were ready for it. Don't get hung up on that. That's the kind of old school thinking that's driving people nuts right now. So don't get hung up on the fact that someone should have to be in an organization for this number of years before they can have a role. Make it about the fact that they're ready for the role, they're ready to take it on, and if it's time for advancement, it's time to advance them, regardless of timing. So the next piece I want to talk about is pay. This is the elephant in the room. It's a reality check for everybody, and this is a myth-busting piece. Everyone always says, oh, culture eats pay for breakfast. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Especially if you're talking about hourly employees. Most hourly employees will cross the street for a couple bucks more. They absolutely will. You have to make it hard on them to make that decision. And can you get them, would they stay there if someone offered them 75 cents an hour more or whatever? Maybe. But really, it's about making sure your pay is competitive. Don't put them in a situation where somebody in the exact same market as you is paying $1.50 more an hour across the street than you are. Just don't put them in that position. So be competitive with pay. That's all I'm saying. You don't have to pay over market, but be competitive. Know what the market's paying in your area, and don't get hung up on what you think it is, because the market's going to tell you. Give the raises you commit to. I've been hearing about a lot of organizations that have said, oh, we got to push raises, or worse yet, they're bringing in team members from the outside making significantly more than team members from the inside. I had a district manager friend that worked for a food service company, and he actually commented that he was getting ready to leave and go to a competitor because he knew that there were folks in his exact same role, exact same sphere of influence, exact same experience coming in making $15,000, $20,000 more a year. And he was going to have to leave the organization to really get kind of right with what he thought the market should be paying for his role. Now, the sin he committed was he was a long-term employee for this organization. And we all know, if you've been a long-term employee, you know that you're not making as much as people coming in. You're also not making as much as if you were going to leave and go to a competitive organization and maybe even then come back. That's probably a nice way to get a big bump there too. But it is the reality of organizations and the way they treat long-term employees, which is you get into this shtick of, well, you can only get so many % per year, and if you make a jump, they're probably going to put you in some kind of pay range, and they don't want to make it too huge of a jump because that skews the numbers on percentage of increase. There's a million reasons why it happens. None of them are right. So you need to understand what your team is making, and you have to make sure you're taking care of those long-term employees. If you want to have a great retention strategy, compensation has got to be a part of that, and your team members absolutely will find out if folks are coming in making more money than them. The other part that I'm hearing a lot about are organizations that are delaying raises or keeping raises really low, 1 to 3%, and then they're clocking in these amazing profits for the quarter or for the year. They're making these kind of record earnings, yet they're not paying decent bonuses. They're not paying their long-term employees well. The raise pool is super small. They're being super miserly with what they're giving out and performance increases and those kind of things. They're really keeping that stuff really tight, yet then they go to shareholders and they do their annual reports and they had record earnings. Well, that really never sets well with the team that helped you deliver that. And then the final piece that I want to mention, and this is one that happens a lot. This is around folks that are put into a new role, and they say to them, hey, go do this new role. It's going to be great, but we want to make sure that you can do it. So we're going to not pay you for that role right now. And if you do a really good job in 90 days, we'll get you your increase. Don't do that. If someone is at a point where they are ready for that role, and if you're willing to put them into that role, this is not an audition, if you will, an unpaid audition. Pay them what the role pays. If they don't do a good job, you can deal with that. But never put somebody into a new role, advance their career, and not give them the requisite title or compensation to go along with that. Flexible working has continued to be a big deal, and it will continue to be a big deal for a very long time. Now, when I'm talking about this is not about roles that just can't be remote. There are some roles where you actually have to be there. A cashier in a grocery store, for example, probably not going to be a remote role. But thinking about, is the role you're talking about, does it have to be in the office? Is there an opportunity to hybrid it? Is there an opportunity for it to be remote? Because that is what people want. So understanding ways to do that and then finding ways to keep them engaged so the productivity doesn't flag is another important part of that. But it has to be about understanding if someone has to come into the office, why? Is it more than just justifying your corporate footprint? Is there a good reason to have them there? Are you really asking someone to commute in 45 minutes and then having them sit in a cubicle and not see anybody all day and still do Zoom meetings, by the way? Because that's no good reason to bring someone into the office. Are you thinking about what is in it for folks if they have to come in? That's the only thing that really matters. Is there a good reason to have them come in, or can they be remote? And that brings a whole different kettle of fish when it comes to managing them and leading them. I get that. But again, if you want to attract really great star talent, some of the best folks are saying, we absolutely want to be remote. And if you look at what happened to Dell, they made the mandate, and a lot of their team members said, nope, we're not going to do it. We're just not. We're done. And they sort of had almost a revolt in the ranks, if you will. Thinking about some other things too, as far as flexible work environments go, have you looked at your attire standards? If your folks are coming into the office and they're not necessarily client facing on a daily basis, do they really need to be in a full suit? I don't know. But thinking about what is professional enough to come into the office, still have comfortability, still have professionalism, but maybe thinking about what does the modern workplace attire look and feel like. And then thinking about this whole idea of remote work. If you do have remote workers, do not micromanage them. You probably have been reading all this thing about mouse jigglers. There was just a big company that let go of people for having that mouse jiggling software on there that made their productivity look like they were a green light on Teams or whatever. That kind of stuff does nothing to build employee engagement and to build a relationship with team members and have them build a relationship with the organization. It just doesn't happen. So understand what you want someone to accomplish in their role. What are the timelines that they need to hit? And then really ask yourself, are they hitting the productivity metrics? Are they delivering high quality work? Are they doing so on time? If that's the case, who cares about the rest? If they're taking an hour lunch to go take their dog to the vet, or if they're working for 4 or 5 hours in the morning and then taking a few hours off to do things and then finishing up into the evening, as long as their work's getting done and it's not impacting anything, who cares? I think is the big deal. Just because it's not the standard work that we may have defined as quote unquote 9 to 5 or whatever, doesn't mean that it's wrong. Now, if there are client calls that need to happen or team meetings, all of those kind of things that happen during the workday, then they have to be on those, right? Flexibility comes with the work demand. But so long as they can meet the demands of work, and again, that's productivity, that's quality work, that's being on time, that's being at all the meetings they need to be at, and being there for clients when they need them within working hours, all of those kind of things. So long as they're doing that, that's where you should be measuring them. And then finally, as you consider your salaried employee base. Now, I'm a terrible example of this because I came up in the restaurant business and it was sort of almost a 24/7 employee job. But when you think about how you lead and manage and the expectations behind salaried employees, they are not 24/7 employees. Just remember that. Now, should there always be flexibility if you're a salaried employee for the occasional after hours call, the occasional, hey, can you check this email in the evening, the occasional, hey, something on the weekend popped up? Yes, that's going to happen. As a salaried employee, you're really not 9 to 5, but you're also not 24/7. So this is where reasonability on the team member side and reasonability on the company side need to come together to do the right thing. And then the final piece, if you really want to drive that culture of employee engagement and retention, be a leader worth following. Communicate openly. Be that leader that gives away the credit, remembering that when your team wins, you win. You don't have to be the center of attention. You kind of automatically are as the leader. So give away that credit. Don't get mired in the politics, especially if you work for a big, messy organization. The politics run rampant. Who got credit for what? Did somebody steal an idea? Who's the biggest dog in the room? Did somebody get called out as amazing? Is there enough credit to go around? Did I get the spotlight? All of those kind of things. Don't get mired in that stuff. It never goes well. Don't be a jerk. Okay, and I think that sounds like such a classic piece of advice and sounds like such an easy one, but there are a lot of leaders that let this stuff go to their head, and they find that it gets so easy to start to steamroll people, to talk too much, to not be a good listener, to not be a great leader, and to not bring people along with them. Just remember that you need the whole team. You can be firm, but you can be kind. And then the last piece around that is when things are tough, when times are tough, when things don't go right, stand in front of your team and protect them. That's the best thing a leader can do. Be a good listener, protect your team, give away the credit. People will want to work for you, I promise that. But remember, there has to be reasonability on both sides. The whole ask here is employers stop taking advantage of employees and employees stop mailing it in. Don't be proud for doing the bare minimum and look for ways to stretch. It's okay. But also remember on the other side, employers, let's not take advantage of people. There's a difference between doing an occasional project to get some visibility and being asked to take on a role for months and months or even quarters or years just to save the organization money and just do more inside of your workday because somebody doesn't want to hire another employee. So find the reasonability and the balance, and that is how we will find this way to balance what we need to do for a business and what we need to do for the team, and everybody will come away feeling like they won. So folks, if you're enjoying this show, and I sure hope you are, take a moment, scroll on down there, leave 5 stars, say something nice, subscribe, share with your friends. Help keep Customer Service Academy one of the top customer experience podcasts in the world. But folks, that is our show. Remember, still in the middle of the great service comeback. This is our chance. The economy is up and down. It's all over the place. So you do not want to be competing on price. Compete on experience. And that means having a team of the very best people who want to stay and want to go the extra mile and want to deliver for customers every day. So until next time, I've been Tony Johnson, your customer experience strategist and trainer, reminding you to keep your customers and your teams at the center of everything you do, because that's where the most amazing things are possible. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will talk to you next week.
This has been Customer Service Academy Radio with Tony Johnson. Tony is available to speak at your event, meeting, or workshop. Have a powerful customer-focused day.